What's up everyone, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for another episode of 7 on Sunday, my weekly countdown show. Take a second to hit that like button and subscribe for the love of music if you haven't already, because today we're going to be talking about 7 songs that took forever to blow up. We're talking about songs that you don't want to sleep on because yes indeed, they were sleeper hits. The term sleeper hits wasn't coined until the 1950s, but it wasn't widely known until the mid to late 1980s and beyond. I think that the 2010s, the early part of the decade that we're currently closing out, were the biggest time, the prime moment that was shining for these sleeper hit songs because the internet was a new thing still kinda, and of course artists were realizing that they could use that to their advantage. Realized that since I'm from the United States, that the majority of the songs that we're talking about today saw the sleeper hit status in the US. Of course, other territories and countries were affected, and we'll get into that if necessary, but I do hope that you guys enjoy this video. Let's get started. It's hard to imagine Lady Gaga as anything other than a pop icon and superstar at this point. But everybody has their start, and Lady Gaga had hers, with her first 2 singles actually both being sleeper hits. Now you might be wondering why I've selected Poker Face at number 7 instead of Just Dance, which was her official debut single. I went with Poker Face because it did take a long time to get going once Just Dance finally broke onto the Billboard charts. Just Dance started dominating and eventually worked its way to the top spot, the peak position of the Hot 100 in January of 2009 after coming out in 2008, but Poker Face was released officially as a single on September 26, 2008. Now these days, in the age of instant gratification, we expect a single to drop and it just impact the charts immediately for Lady Gaga or anybody else in the pop world to start dominating. Well, that wasn't the case for her. A lot of people were saying one-hit wonder, and that's another reason why I decided to go with Poker Face, because after Just Dance topped the Hot 100, Poker Face charted in the low 90s on that same chart. Now eventually in the coming months, it slowly rose up, gained momentum, started to prove people wrong about Lady Gaga being too weird or too out there, and at this point, I would say more people probably remember Poker Face than Just Dance. Poker Face went on to top the Billboard Hot 100 in April of 2009, which was quite a while after its single release in September of the previous year. This definitely threw a finger to many of the people that said it would never happen, and obviously Lady Gaga started writing history. The English band RADIOHEAD come in at number 6 with their staple song, although not one that they necessarily care for, Creep. This song is obviously a legendary track in many different ways, whether the band want to embrace that or not. For quite some time they didn't even play it live just because leader Tom York didn't care for it in the message and they were kind of over it, but they've since brought it back to the set and have realized the impact that the track had on many people. It's the anthem for those that maybe feel a little bit weird, and it was written about an experience that Tom had at university, and this track initially impacted the charts in the UK, their home country, charting in the low 70s and eventually falling off the charts entirely. It was released as a single in September of 1992. I was only 1 year old at the time. September 21st saw that release date, and it impacted the charts slightly, but it wasn't until Pablo Honey came out and the United States started to embrace the track that it saw success in the UK. The summer of 1993 was huge for Radiohead because in the United States, post-grunge was booming. People wanted more bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and not to say that Pablo Honey, the band's debut, was simply just post-grunge, and it is hard to think about Radiohead as anything other than this experimental, genre boundary-pushing band, but at the time, they did have those influences. Creep was a song that eventually charted at number 34 on the Hot 100 in the United States, and this is in the summer of 93 after coming out as a single in September of 92. After that, the band's management saw an opportunity in the UK, and since it didn't initially see that much success over there, they re-released the single, and it eventually worked its way up to number 7 on the charts there. The number 5 position goes to the alternative band Foster the People in their hit song, Pumped Up Kicks. Pumped Up Kicks was a massive sensation and nuclear explosion that I don't think anybody could have predicted. This is a track that was obviously recorded by the band in their early stages. It was their first official single. Mark Foster, who obviously gave the name to Foster the People, started recording music in the late 2000s, and in the first months of 2010, he dropped Pumped Up Kicks online, just randomly uploading it, and the success started to roll in. People were gobbling up this track. A lot of record labels, a lot of talent agencies were emailing him. He didn't know what to do, but they eventually signed with Columbia Records and officially released this song as a single September 14th in 2010. Now, what is it? The first 3 songs on this list have all been released as singles officially in September, leading me to believe that September is the sleeper hits month. And what's this? I'm wearing a Green Day shirt, American Idiot, and the song Wake Me Up When September Ends is on here? I smell a conspiracy. Pumped Up Kicks went on to top the alternative charts way after it came out in early 2010, after the release of a 3-song EP also featuring the amazing tracks Houdini and Helena B. Foster the People were gaining a lot of traction and quickly. Fast forward to approximately a year and a half later, and this song finally breaks into the mainstream top 40 on the Hot 100. I remember really rooting for this track because obviously I love alternative music and I wanted to see it rise up the charts. It eventually kept going into the top 40 and even higher, and it peaked out and stalled in number 3, where it stayed for 8 different weeks. I remember rooting so hard for this track. I even posted a screenshot when it briefly rose to number 1 on the iTunes charts, and I was just so happy for whatever reason. I kind of miss those days, honestly. The Australian singer-songwriter GOTYE comes in at number 4 with his worldwide phenomenon hit, Somebody That I Used to Know, featuring Kimbra. This is one of the greatest breakup songs of all time. I would have no problem calling it that. It's probably personally my favorite, and it's such a good song. So much emotion packed in, and every time, but you didn't have to cut me off. When that comes in, it just takes you back. It doesn't matter if you're in a happy relationship. You're just like, ooh, I remember the bitterness. I remember how bad that knife in the back felt. Somebody That I Used to Know was released as a single on July 5th, 2011 in his home country of Australia. It saw a lot of success there and topped the charts in August, just a month after its release, but the video didn't do all that well, which is crazy considering it now has over 1.2 billion views. It only did 200,000 views in the first 2 weeks, which is kinda hard to wrap my head around. It may have been an instant hit in his home country of Australia, but it was the rest of the world, including the United States, where it proved to be a massive sleeper hit. This song started getting coverage on TV shows including Glee, there was the Walk Off the Earth cover, and this song started rising up the charts. Now, this wasn't until the next year, 2012, that it really started to see an impact. Somebody landed on the US Hot 100 in January of 2012 at number 91, before eventually climbing its way all the way up the charts and then staying at number 1 for a very long time. This song is something that I don't think anybody could have necessarily predicted. Maybe you would have said this would see success at adult contemporary radio or perhaps pop, but this is something that topped the alternative charts, the rock charts, and the mainstream Hot 100.
You can't carry it with you if you want to survive. The dark days are over.
As we inch our way closer and closer to the top of the list, starting with number 3, we're going to start to see some ridiculous wait times for these songs to actually take off. And the number 3 position goes to none other than Florence and the Machine, a UK band, and their single, the debut that really lifted them to this massive worldwide success, Dog Days Are Over. The single saw its release officially December 1st, 2008 after being recorded in 2007, although it initially stalled in success in the UK. It remained on the low end of the UK Hot 100 throughout the first half of 2009, and it really wasn't until a performance at the MTV Music Awards in September of 2010 that the song truly impacted a worldwide success, especially on the United States Hot 100. Now, keep in mind that this was nearly 2 years after the song's initial single release, and the world was just starting to catch on. Sure, the UK had kind of wrapped their arms around it and embraced it, but not totally. But the US figured out Florence and the Machine were a thing with this track, the performance was legendary, and the song remains iconic. My number 2 position goes to AWOLNATION and their song Sail. Of course, this was mainly just Aaron Bruno at the time and a few other instrumentalists that were playing a part in the band before eventually becoming full-fledged members. This track was released as a single officially his debut on Red Bull Records January 4th, 2010. Sail took 9 months to actually chart on the Hot 100 and become a full-fledged crossover hit after the success that it saw at alternative and rock radio. It did eventually fall off. People thought that that was it, but obviously that was coming like 9 months to a year after it had initially been released as a single, making it a sleeper hit already. But no, this track was not done. It holds the record for the second longest charting song of all time, behind only Radioactive by Imagine Dragons, by logging 79 freaking weeks on the Hot 100, and it only topped out at number 17. You would think maybe this eventually went top 10, but unfortunately it didn't.
Show the lights that stop me, turn to star on you, shine me when I'm alone.
Appearing at the summit today at number 1 is Ellie Goulding with her hit song and worldwide sensation, Lights. This track was actually recorded all the way back in 2008, and so many people didn't even know that it was really a thing until 2012. 4 years, that is a long time to sit on material. Of course, it didn't officially come out until February 26, 2010, when her album of the same name was released in her home country of the UK. It initially did impact the charts a little bit, at least, after being released as a single in the UK in the early months of 2011, but this song couldn't have had a story that anybody would have ever written, because it wrote itself and it kind of wrote chart history. Of course, it was seeing some success in Ellie's home country, but the song was seeing more of a slow burn effect here in the United States. Lights charted for more than a year on the Hot 100, which is extremely rare in and of itself, but the more impressive feat is just how steady its climb was. Touring, late-night TV, and word-of-mouth online all played into its continued rise. It didn't reach the top 40 until it had been on the Hot 100 for 19 weeks, reaching its peak of number 2 in its 33rd week. That is unreal and unheard of. I really have to emphasize that. Now, I have unfortunate news there. Songs that didn't quite hit number 1 but totally should have. I know one that's on my shirt, but another one would be Lights. It was originally blocked out by Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe, which I really would prefer Lights over that. But then, just when it looked like it was gonna go to number 1, it got blocked by none other than the one and only Flo. We're talking about fucking Flo Rida blocking it with Whistle, a song about where he thinks that it's clever to say his whistle is like his dick. Can you blow my whistle, You know what? I don't need to explain it. I'm mad for Ellie Goulding. That should have been a number 1 smash hit single, but instead it's like, oh, we were number 2. It sucks. Anyways, guys, that's a wrap on this episode of 7 on Sunday. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, then please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe if you happen to be new in town. Were you surprised by any of these choices today? And do you remember them working their way up the charts? Or maybe you had no idea that they were a hit in the first place and you just happen to like or remember the song. Whatever you think, let me know in the comments section down below. Patreon donations truly help the channel keep going. Thank you to everybody who is supporting me, including 3RS and Josh Lincoln. Thank you to my $50 a month patrons. If you would like to join in and add fuel to that fire, then click the top link down below. Catch up on more SOS here, another recent video here, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.